Good evening. Hello, my name's Gail. We're going to go ahead and start, and my introduction is a little test for our sound person in the back, and it seems to be going well. But my name is Gail. I work for the library, putting on programs like this. So if you have other ideas for programs, let me know. If you'd like me to help you sign up for a newsletter, email newsletter, I can do that so you could be aware of future things. This particular program is called Woven Through the Sweetgrass, and is related to this book, which will be for sale at the end of the program. And if you're joining us, people are also joining virtually. Those people, you can order it probably from Amazon, or you could the Toadstool, you can order it from some other bookstores, might have it in stock. I was able to get mine from the bookstore in Bellows Falls. They just had it right on the shelf. So this program is co-sponsored by the library and also by the City of Keene's Diversity Committee. Now it's called the Human Rights Committee. It's gone through a lot of changes. And so it's had some other names. You might also, if you've been around for a long time, you might know the name Martin Luther King Jonathan Daniels Committee. That's what it used to be called. Now it's called the Human Rights Committee. And we join and we do programs together. This is one of them. And this is about the Abenaki people in New Hampshire, New England, and Canada. The Abenaki people, they've lived in the New Hampshire that we know for more than 12,000 years. The Abenaki are part of a larger group of indigenous people who call themselves the Wabanaki, or the people of the dawn, and they form many communities connected by a common language. Here at the Keene Public Library, we're committed to acknowledging and honoring the human history tied to this land. And tonight we have two guests. We have Susie Obomsawan, who's going to be joining us virtually. She's the Assistant Executive Director and Human Resources Officer at the Abenakis of Odanak Council. That's in Canada. And she's joining us from Canada to share the historical perspective on land that the Abenakis considered to be their unceded territory. It's called Keene. And that's the territory. It's really vast. What? They can't hear me. Jay? Working on it. This was the test, because what I say isn't as important as what Joyce is going to say. So we really want them to hear Joyce. So I was going to say the Reed-Shulo watershed, the territory goes from the western part of the Reed-Shulo watershed, the St. Lawrence River, the St. John River. So in person here, who will speak in a little while, first we're going to hear from Susie, and that part everybody should hear. It's Joyce's that is, I think, the issue. Susie has Joyce has recently edited this book. Anybody read this book? Yeah, great. It's Woven Through the Sweetgrass. It's stories that she and her sister edited her mother's stories about their stories about her mother and the whole extended Abenaki family. It's her larger family that have roots in both Odanak and in Keene. So I welcome everyone. And I don't know whether they've heard if they've got the sound issue going, but some of you might have seen all the books we have around the room. Books are just a really good way to find out more about what we're talking about, or other indigenous peoples, because there are a lot of books that I recommend, and a lot of them are out. So if you see a book, or you know a book that you would like to see, talk to me about it. You can check those books out tonight, and I could put a book on hold for you. We can begin to the process of ordering a book. You know, we do have woven through the sweetgrass. And I want to tell you really quickly about 2 more books that I would recommend. This one called Everything You Wanted to Know About Indians But Were Afraid to Ask. This is the young reader's edition. So, it's written by an Ojibwe professor. He's a professor, but he's also a part of the group that he's writing about. So he's, but this is a young reader's edition, so it's also easy to understand. And then there's also this young adult book that I read last year called The Firekeeper's Daughter, which is a really good book. It's about a fictional native nation, but the author is Sioux Chippewa, and so she has it very well grounded. And this would be another native group that crosses a border. So it has a lot of, even though it's a different group, I think after tonight, that might be an interesting book to read about how people navigate going from Michigan to Canada and being part of a different nation as well, besides either Canada or United States. So, Jay, I hope he has it. So I'm going to turn this over now to Susie. Are we ready? Got it? Fixed? Okay, great. So she's going to take over. We got her. Jay, they can see her, but she muted. Yeah, that's great that you can see her. Hearing would be better, but seeing is good too.
Where's the way?
Can you hear her? Can you hear her?
No, nobody can hear.
No one can hear.
I'm assuming people can hear me virtually, but the one in the room cannot hear me, so.
Coming through the speakers. What's it coming from? I put my laptop in. I think so. We got an HDMI thing here? Is there a cord here? Jay? Okay, in here. No, but Okay, there is an HDMI here already. Should I unplug that one? Yeah, you can hear a little well. It's coming from the computer in there. It would be great to make it louder. Because you can't hear it really very well. Now you can't see, oh, but you're gonna get it from my computer. Okay, there's no signal though, Jay.
Sorry, technical difficulties. You never know.
Yeah, I know, you've been hearing it from there, so like if you could get it from here, if we open the door or something, or get the out. Plug it back in. Okay, should we get this out? Okay, we're gonna go back. Like you said, you could hear before. Back. Oh no.
There we go.
Computer back. If you brought that computer out here, they could hear a little more. Open the door, they can hear a little more. Did we get?
I have a Bluetooth speaker if you want to. I know it.
We have a Bluetooth speaker. Can we put a Bluetooth speaker out the wall?
You need it. It's in the
I
drawer.
don't know what, I don't really know. what you- Okay, he has to think for 1 second. Sorry about that. Something is cutting into the, there's something happening. Hey, I don't know whether you guys noticed that there's nice cookies out in the hall. Nice coffee.
Hello, is it working now?
Yeah, it would have to be very quiet.
Really loud.
Just let her know what's going on, maybe she's wondering.
But I don't, I can't say it.
Really bad at jokes. Especially since most of the jokes I know are actually in French, so
have a book club. That is one that happens. We can get multiple
Well,
copies.
I'm in a book club. We haven't met yet, but we started reading.
Yeah, yeah. The state has that one. Plus, they have a orange board. Tell me orange. There. That's good. Not words. Better than nothing, Trey.
We can hear you through the computer, but not our speakers.
There's an unmute thing on the top corner. Here is our from a French speaker, and then we're starting to see.
Jay, the Bluetooth speaker's not going to work.
I'm gonna try that now. Because for some reason, I just can't get the computer to go to our sound together.
It's fine. It was my the last thing that happened. Okay, I have.
Thank you for your patience.
Hello? Is it working now?
How about now?
Hello?
Thank you for your patience. Audience,
Fine.
keep it down. And Susie, you can go ahead.
Fine. Since I didn't hear how it was introduced, I guess I just do it again. And sorry for the folks who are hearing the same story twice. Parents Erin, Tadeweze, Soseo Bansawino, Adam Baswanian, Glenwood Otanak, Olibayon, Obanaki, Kentakina. Greeting everyone. My name is Susie Ramsawin. I'm a Abenaki. I live in Odanak. I welcome you on our traditional territory. I am the daughter of Elena Barsawin and Yvon Bikoto, and the granddaughter of Alain Barsawin, François Gil, and Clément Bikoto and Florence Pellerin. You maybe have heard or read about one of my great grandfather. His name is Ambroise Barsawin. So this is my family line, out there. I'm really thankful for this event. Really thankful to be able to join virtually, even though it was a challenge to make it happen. Usually, when I people are patient, I'm trying to get better and for the next direction that I have virtue. So I'm also looking forward to hear about stories in the book that she's going to talk to you about. This is, we haven't met each other, so I'm really looking forward to being a fellow member. I have a presentation that I want to share. Hopefully, I can manage to do it the right way. See it. This is the presentation. So, as I'm from Odanak, over the past few weeks, I've done a lot of those presentation during different events, and I actually found out that there are a lot of people who don't know what Odanak is, where we are located at. So this is, I guess, I assume that everybody knew about us, where we were. So this is just like an overview of the distance between Odanak and where people are physically in the public library. So we are over 4 hours away up north, just to give you like a sense, and keep that map in mind, because it's also going to be a good indicator of the traditional territory that I'm going to show you later on. So if you want to summarize the nation, what it stands for, this is probably the best slide that can summarize it. So the Abenaki Nation is among the Algonquin people. We are from the American Northeast. We have over 3,000 members that are coming from Odanak or Molinak. This is our sister community. Our members are mainly living in Quebec and Ontario as well, the Sudbury area, and a couple of different places in the United States, mainly in Vermont, Hampshire, Maine, New York, and Connecticut. The Abenaki, our territory, actually, if we give you a sense, all or parts of southern Quebec, Maine, Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts. We say that the southern limit of the territory is around the city of Boston. And this is also important to say that even if we use the word border, we see it more as a limit than an official border like the Canadian-American border. Just to give you a sense, we say that the eastern limit is from the Penobscot River and the Jimerson River, which is located in Quebec. And on the western limit are the line between the Merrimack River and the Michigan River and Lake Champlain. So this is just like a rough summary of the territory. It's also really important to say that we have different neighbors as nation that our territories overlaps or are next to each other. So the Abenaki borders territories of the Wallistipik, the Malis Nation, the Penobscot, and the Keene Chautauqua, which are the Mohawks. So this is just also like to make you understand that the territory, we have different neighbors, and we have different kind of relationship with each other, and still today we recognize those limits or those overlaps between different nations. So here's a couple of pictures of the nation, from the nation actually. So earlier I said that there are two Abenaki communities. I am tied to Odanak, but we have also a sister community named Wolinak that is 45 kilometers away from Odanak. The top picture, the river you see, is actually the Wolinak, the Picapo River, which is next to the community of Wolinak. If you don't know the meaning of Wolinak, actually it means at the bay, and Odanak means at the village. So it's pretty simple there are a lot of those locations like that in the territory that are pretty specific, pretty simple as well. We often think about introduced in a poetic way, but it's most of the time it's really for the use of the territory, what it meant for us. So Odanak used to be called just people were referring to the community as the village, so it just was translated into the Abenaki language, and that's why we are called Odanak. It used to be St. Francis Indian Mission before it was called Odanak. So the bottom pictures are two ladies from Odanak. They are doing basket weaving. Pretty sure there are a lot of people alive that know about basket weaving. So they are made out of black ash and sweetgrass. Black ash is really important to us as Abenaki people. I'm not going to share the whole creation story, but if we summarize the creation story, it says that the also second time the Abenaki people made us out of black ash. So this is why we are deeply connected to that tree, and we are still putting a lot of energies today to make sure that we have access to the tree, that it is healthy, even though it's pretty having a lot of like ash borer and other kind of pressure on the tree is really weakening it, but we are making a lot of effort to make sure that for the next generation will have access to the black ash. And on the right, a picture of David Banati, which he is a member of Odanak, and he used to be actually a really great storyteller. He passed away before I was born, but I heard a lot of stories from him. And he was also a sculptor, and one of the things he created was a temple that is located in Tourville, in New Hampshire, the old post office that was managed by the Stephen Laurent. So I tried to find it when I was in New Hampshire 2 weeks ago, but we were just going through Instagram and stuff this information, and he wasn't sure that it was still up. So hopefully I'll have more time next time. I'll go to New Hampshire and I'll find it to see if this creation is still in a good condition, or if we need to make sure to protect it. So this is something I'm going to share. The next slide actually is just a map showing the two communities. This is what it is officially called the Indian Reservation, but we don't really like to use those words. We are more comfortable using communities. I always forget what it would be in miles, but in kilometers. They are 7 square kilometers, so it's pretty small for communities. And it's in total, those two communities, it's 7 square kilometers. Compared to the traditional territory, it's a big loss of land, and it's also it has a lot of, as you can see, there are tiny pieces here and there. We don't have access to all of those places anymore. So it's not like the pretty culturally active in the communities. We are thriving as communities. So I would rather like to focus on that than just to say that we lost a lot of land. As for the international, so I already said our territory in it is really important to understand the land in terms of river watersheds and tributaries. This is how you can have a sense of the size of the territory territory, but also how you can, all everything is connected to each other. So on your right, it's really small, but it's one of the map that we created at the election office. Because I forgot actually this presentation, I borrowed it from the election office of the Council of the Abenaki Nations. This is not my own presentation. All of the maps that you see, they are from me, they are from the election office. So on those maps, it's small and I don't think you can read it, but we put all the components in the language that were still available today, and that were documented through words like Gordon Day, that his all the knowledge he gathered from the people of the community of Ottawa is actually in the at Thornton College, so we have access to that, but there are also other research that were conducted that we have access to different documents, and we put them, all of them on a map. And one of the most important thing that you have to see about that map is that we at some point decided to stop referring to the Canadian-American border. We stopped putting that border on our map because it was not making any sense to us to put that foreign border that we didn't have in the same and show it on our traditional territory. So we decided to exclude that limit on our maps, and it's just making it even more. It shows from the south to north of our territory. And it's also important to understand that this map actually, the territory limit change over time, change over different dynamics. So it's not something that is static, but this is something that we say today is our traditional territory. And also important to say that we still have traditional practices on our territory, still go hunting, fishing, trapping, gathering, different kind of stuff. So this is something that is still close to us. That's who we are. Not everybody practice those traditional activities, but there are a lot of our members that actually do. So it's important for them to still connect to the land and making sure that they are using it in a sustainable way where they are, those resources are going to be available for the next generations. And you have to see that map has, like I said, the different limits that I mentioned earlier. You have to see that those connections and that are really how we move on the territories. Today we are obviously using different kinds of transportation, but back then we needed to be able to canoe all those territories to move on the territory. This is another representation of the Abenaki. So again, what you see gray are kind of our highways. So they were the routes taken by the Abenaki Nation to move on the territory. And this is how you have, it's always hard to explain what it means to us how big it was, how it was interconnecting. But I guess this is like the easiest way for me to show you is that you have also gray lines and you see that they are linked to each other. You, in this, like really at the north side, you see the two communities of Abenaki and Abenaki. So this is like the end game of the territory. Over the past year, we've done a lot of archaeological research. There's a team at the Induction Office. I think now there are 5 archaeologists working different projects. And one of the projects that we spent a lot of years in collaboration with the Abenaki Museum in Ottawa was about the St. Francis condemnation. So really where the fort was, like the fortification reservation was in Odanak, and it changed actually how, well, we had knowledge and we had stories related to that site, but what we could find in historic books and what we learned in school and in different places was that this place was established for the French people of production and stuff like that. But once we start digging and start collecting artifacts, we actually were able to connect our traditional histories and storytelling to what we thought was the use that we had at that site. So it was really like a campsite, and that site was actually connecting to other sites in the territory. So it was a similar pattern, similar artifacts, similar bones that were collected into the diet was similar. So it was really interesting to see that all being connected to each other. So we could actually say that the site in the Odanak was connecting to other sites in the Connecticut River Valley. And it was just making way more sense that the story that was being told, that we were being told by historians. Not that it's bad to be a historian, but just that we had different perspective, and it made us, guess it was just a way for us to reconnect in a good way to this site. So the mission itself was established in the we don't from the dating that was found on different artifacts that were found on the site in Odanak, but actually it was showing the continuity of occupation, and you see all the days, and I'm really bad at saying dates in English, but you see that there were a couple of different days that were established, and it was way, what you have to understand from what I'm trying to say is that it was way, we were there on those sites for thousands of years, and this is just like as a member of Odana, knowing about that was something that we were all really proud of. And like we went back home, actually, we went back to the place that we knew about. We were not welcome as refugees, or we were not like being protected under French influence. So of course that story happened as well. It's just challenging what we know and what we learned. So this is what I'm trying to say. And this is another map actually showing different archaeological sites, and there were a lot of them that were actually done in comparison. It was research that was available, and we could compare the artifacts. So it was all the red triangle are the sites that I was telling you earlier about. So those sites have the same kind of pattern and the same kind of occupation, the same kind of artifacts. So they're connected to each other. This is really, I'm really proud of what we have published so far. This is a new way of learning who we were, and connecting more to our stories, our own stories. So before, this is not, I would like to pitch the Abenaki Museum. So the Abenaki Museum that is located in Quebec is actually the first Native American museum in Quebec. It has been open for more than 50 years. But it opened in 1965. I'm really proud of the museum. Like, as you can tell, like, I'm really proud to be a team. I'm really proud of everything we have accomplished so far. But my grandfather was one of the founder of the Abenaki Museum, and this is open to everybody. Anybody can go and visit the museum. It is located on the side of the powwow that we have every year, so it's really accessible. We have a great collection, different exhibit, and also you're going to be able to watch a video of the creation story. So this is also like always something that people are looking forward when they visit the museum. You have my contact information if you want to reach out. You can send an email, you can call me. It's always easier to send me an email because I'm not always at the office. But you can always you can find me quite easily. And before I end our presentation, I'm going to try to share a song that my great grandfather was actually wrote. And so I'm not going to be the one singing the song. I'm going to try to share his recording of the song because it's going to be much better. Just a second. And I'm hoping you get to hear it. Hold on, I'm going to try. This is a song that I which is a song for to remember the attack that happened on October 4th, 1759. So the message that is really important is going to be signed in Abenaki language. So this is going to be quite hard to understand it, but the meaning of it, if we summarize it, is that don't be ashamed to be who you are. You are as worth as your skin is as worth as white skin. So this is just a song to remember that we are important as Abenaki people. That, and of course, the computer is not cooperating for the song, but seems like it cannot be file. I'm really sorry about it. Maybe later on in the presentation I'll be able to share it. I don't know if Joyce is ready. Maybe she can take over.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay. That was great, Susie. Thank you. I learned some things that I didn't know, although was never an expert anyway. But I'm just going to, first I'd like to say thank you to everyone for being here and for those online that are watching. And just want to explain something because when I say the word Abenaki, you may notice that I say Abenaki and not Abenaki. Everybody in my family, the family from Keene, we pronounce it Abenaki. I'm told it's an older version of pronunciation, and it just comes out of my mouth that way. I've never changed it over to what the newer people say, so that'll save a question at the end. I am going to start with a reading from my mother's book, Woven Through the Sweetgrass. Closer. It's called Love. Love cannot be seen or measured, cannot be bought or sold. It comes unbidden and resides in the heart and soul. Love came to me in my mother's embrace when she comforted me after a fall, in my grandmother's lap as she rocked and told me stories of her childhood, in my father's arms as he carried me to bed when I was too tired to walk. Love clothed me in the outfits sewn by my mother, in the mittens knit by my grandmother's rheumatic fingers. Love surrounded me on trips to the farm with my grandfather, on family outings to fish and pick berries, on snowshoe walks in the quiet winter forest with my father. Love instructed me in my father's voice as he read aloud Winnie the Pooh in the children's classics my aunts kept for me in their bookcase, in the encyclopedia set my parents bought instead of new clothing for themselves, and in my grandmother's instruction in making pie crust and mopping the floor. Love came not in dramatic moments, but in the quiet events of everyday life, and built a reservoir in my heart. This reservoir is a legacy from people long since gone, passed through me to new generations. Love bestowed is never lost. The reservoir of love does not run dry. And this one is called Sewing Basket. When my aunt Margaret Sadekis was nearly 100 years old, she gave me her sewing basket, along with the scissors, thimble, pin cushions, and several other small baskets that her mother, Mary Watso Sadekis, had made for Margaret when she was a child. According to my aunt, her mother had made sewing baskets for each of her daughters. Aunt Margaret described how her mother tied sweetgrass to the back of a chair and taught her how to braid the material. The braids were then used in constructing the new basket. Thus it incorporated handwork of both mother and daughter. I treasure this basket set as an example of the basket-making skill of my Abenaki grandmother and as a connection between 3 generations of my family. I chose those two to read. Oh. Should I continue or wait?
Did you hear that? Can people... I think it should go on, but we're going to add. Jay can hear everything, so we assume people can hear, but you should go ahead and add.
Okay, if he can bring up the first part of just the cover page.
There it is.
All right. Those words that I just read from the 2 essays in the book were written by my mother, Claudia Mason Chickless, and they're included in the book, as I said. I'm here to talk about the book. Let me try again. Anyway, the reason I chose those 2 is because, to me, they signify the essence of the book. It's what that book is all about. You can learn some things about an Abenaki family. You can read it for that. But the book is really about family, family love, and culture. that's passed down through the generations. And my mother, by writing this book, continued to pass that down for her own family. That her intent was to write it for her family. And what actually happened was my sister and I, after my mother passed away, realized that my mother had written many more stories than we realized. We knew there were some, but I had inherited the contents of her computer, and I started sending some of the stories to my sister. We talked about them at length back and forth, and we realized other family members would like to know these, and then we realized that perhaps people in Keene would like to know about the family, Abenaki people might like to know, and people researching Keene or Abenaki people. So that's how we decided to put the book together. My sister and I compiled it, and I went through all the photographs. There's a lot of them included in the book. And let me tell you a little about my mother. She was born in 1926. The echo is actually disturbing. Take it to the parking lot and blow it up. As I said, now I don't think it's working at all, right? Test? Test? Okay. My mother was born in 1926 to Elizabeth Sadekis Mason, an Abenaki woman, and she descended from people from Odanak. And her father was Claude Mason from an old Yankee family, and they arrived in Massachusetts in 1634 and were established in Keene, in New Hampshire, in the 1700s. Elizabeth, my mother's mother, my grandmother, was the youngest of 12 children, and she was born here in Keene. The older children, a few of them were born up in Odanak. One was even born in Connecticut. My mother was the first of two children, and she grew up hearing stories from her mother's family and how the Sadek family came to settle in Keene after leaving their home in Odanak in Canada, and how they made a way for themselves in spite of poverty and discrimination, and eventually becoming financially successful and respected members of the local community here in Keene. I'm going to skip through a little bit because some of it's duplicate of what Susie said too. So my mother in the book begins with telling about how the Sadekis, Israel and Mary, left Canada and came and eventually made it to Keene. And they went first to Norwich, Connecticut. And other members of their family had settled there. And I'd like to read a little bit of how they came down. This section's called A New Direction. My mother's sister Margaret is 102 years old and lives at a nursing home in New Hampshire. Several years ago, she told me about my grandparents' life on the reserve and their move to the United States from their reserve in Canada. Israel Msedekus, my grandfather, was born in 1846 and grew up on the Abenaki Indian Reserve at Odanak, Quebec, Canada. Although Israel had little formal education, his father hoped his son would become a priest. When the boy was approximately 11, there was an opening in a boarding school some distance away, which would lead to training for the priesthood. His father was successful in obtaining this opening for Israel and left him at school with all his clothing and possessions packed into a one ash splint basket, about the size of a small trunk. He found himself among boys younger than he, who were far ahead of him academically, though with little experience or interest in the hunting, trapping, and fishing at which he was adept. He decided he could not adapt to the stifling indoor life and climbed out a window one night, carrying his basket on his shoulders. He made his way back to Odanak on foot and rejoined his father and brothers in their traditional life. And we're fortunate that his father did not make him go back, I think. The Odanak Reserve is a few miles south of the St. Lawrence River, located on the St. Francis River, several miles from where it flows into the St. Lawrence. However, the hunting and trapping territories assigned to the Odanak men were some distance away, lying between the St. Lawrence River and Hudson's Bay. If a man did not wish to spend his life as a farmhand, working at low wages, mucking a farmer's barn, he traveled each fall to his family territory and spent the winter months running his trap lines. His wife and children remained at Odanak while he endured the rigors of the Canadian winters, walking miles on snowshoes to harvest the furs which he traded to the Hudson's Bay Company for necessities. And if he were skilled and lucky, a cash payment to last over until the next trapping season. Grandfather Israel married Mary Watso in 1872 and continued to live the traditional life. However, game was becoming scarcer each year, and life grew harder. In 1877 to 1878, while he was away for the winter, Mary and their two small children became seriously ill. There was no way to notify Israel. Relatives called in a physician who reluctantly came onto the reserve and treated the little family. But Mary could not pay the doctor, who advised her he would expect payment when Israel returned from his trap lines in the spring. For his part, although Israel had experienced a poor season, he decided to keep a few prime mink pelts for Mary and brought them back to her when he returned for the season. When the doctor called on the family to check on the state of their health and found Israel had returned, he asked for his payment. There was no spare cash in the household this year, therefore no way to pay immediately. However, the doctor observed the pelts hanging in the small house and said he would accept all the furs as settlement of the bill. The deal was struck, and the bill paid as suggested, leaving them little to show for the year's work and doubtful prospects for the future. I personally think my mother was being kind about what the payment that he took, because I think he was way overpaid. Israel and Mary looked at their family and considered their life and that of the families around them. At first fearfully, then with growing conviction, they discussed leaving the reserve. They saw poverty and prejudice as their lot if they remained at Odanak. They heard that in Connecticut, where a relative had moved several years earlier, their children could go to school and receive the education that had not been possible for them at the reserve. They decided they must make the move for the sake of the children. And so, in the summer of 1878, my grandparents packed their household goods and their children into a canoe and followed the waterways, portaging where necessary, to get to the Connecticut River on their way to their family living in Norwich, Connecticut. Thus had begun a journey that would return them to lands their ancestors had left 2 centuries ago, when they were driven north by the encroaching settlements of British colonials. Okay, if we could have the next slide. Just one, the next slide from that one. One before that. Right, this is the people I was just reading about. This is Israel here, is the little boy who took his belongings and put it in a basket and walked home. And this is his father, Thomas Sadakis. Sadakis, sometimes it's spelled many different ways. Okay, next slide. And this is Mary Watso Sadakis. This is Israel's wife. This is actually her wedding photo. This is from 1872. This is Mary's mother, Margaret O'Bumpsowin. Also up in Odenak, she would have been called Marguerite. Okay, next slide. These are the homes that they lived in up in Odenak. I'm not sure what date on these pictures. These 2 are different angles. The Sadakis home. And that is up in Odenak in the village. This is the Watso home. As you can see, their poverty was real. Okay. Next slide. This is just to acclimate you to where Odenak is. Susie touched on that and did a better job than this is probably doing. But just so you can get an idea, it's about halfway between Montreal and Quebec up there. Next slide. This is a map showing the path that they would have taken coming down the Connecticut River. This is where it connects from Canada and down through Vermont, Canada, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and there's Norwich. They went down, they stayed there for a couple of years down there. And Mary, actually at one point she got ill while they were down there. She gave birth to a child who's kind of a mysterious child. We had in the family, my mother had never known the name of this child. Her aunt could not remember the name of this child. I found him in the Connecticut census. His name was Solomon Joseph or Joseph Solomon. We can't quite tell. And the natives oftentimes would use middle names. As they grew, then they might have switched to their given first name, and they'd go back and forth, so it's hard to say. That little boy probably died under a year old, but he was born down there, but Mary, like I said, she got sick and they called in a doctor down there. And the doctor advised her that the climate in Connecticut was too warm for her. And that they should go north. They should go back to where the climate was good for her. So I'm quite sure that he was just trying to get rid of them. And they did make plans to go, but as I said, she had that child. The child was born, and it took them another couple of years. They got there in 1878, and they left in 1880. And they would have gone, as near as I can tell, they went back up to Odenak, so they would have traveled. you know, the same way they went back up to Abenaki, and then traveled down, we're not quite clear on how they did it, but it all took place in 1880, and they ended up in Keene in 1880, and began to settle. And I just wanted to mention too that the name Watso, Mary's maiden name was Watso, because a lot of people ask me that, if I know what it means. And Watso means from the mountain, or the mountain, from the mountain, most likely. And that's WATSO, is the way it stands now. Back, an older spelling was Waju, WAJOO. And tying it into the fact that the Abenaki traveled all through the area and were actually made up of people from all different tribes fleeing New England and moving farther north, so they did take in a lot of people, a lot of different tribal people. And the interesting thing to me about the Waju is that there's a mountain in Massachusetts, Mount Wachusett, and if you can hear the Wachu in there, Wachusett, Waju. Personally, we have no way of proving it, but I think that the Watso family probably came from that area in Massachusetts. And one of our family members that we don't have a photograph or a picture of, Louis Watso. He's rather well known in New England for people that are into the Native American things. He was known as an Indian doctor, and he traveled all through, mostly I believe, Western Mass, down into Connecticut, you know, back up into Vermont, and up into Canada. And if he was originally from Mount Wachusett area, you can see how easy it was for him to go, because he knew these routes, he was familiar with them. The other family name that I talked about tonight is the Sadekis, and that, there's a theory, not mine, but a theory that he came from the Scotticook tribe out in New York, Connecticut, Western Mass area. And it's said by some to mean big river person. Well, I think that's the general consensus, is it's big river person. And I've even heard big rumped person. But my Aunt Margaret Sadekis said it meant one who accomplishes, or one who's good with their hands. So that's the meaning that I go with. Can I have the next slide? This is a shot from 1915. It's the village of Abenaki. You can see it's kind of crowded together, clustered together, and from a distance it looks kind of nice. Next slide. This is another shot from about the same year, down by the river, and it's pretty idyllic. You can see the people here at the river's edge, the little boats, canoes, more modern than the traditional birch bark canoes. But the thing about these two is that they're postcards, and they were probably done to sell to tourism. And that's why they look so, they're almost enchanting. You know, you almost want to go there. And that was pretty common. That was one of the ways they survived and made money. They would do postcards, they would pose for them, and do things like this, and sell baskets. Okay, next slide. This is another way that, as I mentioned, that they survived. They sold baskets. This is an ad placed by Israel Sadekis here in Keene. It's in the Keene City Directory from 1903. And you can see that he says he's a basket maker. Manufactures all kinds of fancy and rough baskets, guaranteed to outlast any others in the market. We also tan all kinds of fur hides by our own methods, our own process, which leaves them soft, flexible, and insect-proof. And you can see that's his home address, so he sold these out of his home. One other thing that he did was make ash splints, and you saw some of those in Susie's presentation where they were making the basket. He made his own baskets. His wife Mary probably made some, but they also had hired help there. He had several employees. Probably most of them came from family members that helped him make the baskets and the ash splints. And they also traveled up to Odenok back and forth and bought baskets to bring down. And I know that one of his employees was Samuel Sadekis, who was his cousin. He's listed in the Keene City Directory in 1889 as a boarder at Israel's house. And his occupation is, guess what? Basket maker. Oops. Okay, next slide. This is the cover of the book. This is Mary Watson's basket. That is in my possession today. It was my mother's. And it's just gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.